Just clarifying, you have no room at the moment?
We called City Dog Control.
Hi, I'm calling to inquire about space for a stray dog. Hi, if someone found a stray dog...
Then we tried other shelters and rescues.
Completely full? That's because under a somewhat unique arrangement, Wells College was in control of the water treatment plant for decades. It was first built for their students, and later on, Village Homes connected their water lines to it. So, under claimed financial stress, when the college closed abruptly last year, it was suddenly up to the village of Aurora to make sure that the water treatment plant stays running, and that comes at a cost. In addition to the human toll, you can see the sheer force of this crash in the debris field that's still here nearly 24 hours later, and in the work that's still ongoing. This is a crew from Verizon that's been here throughout much of the afternoon. They're working to get some of that critical wiring transferred from the old utility pole, all but destroyed in Thursday night's crash, and put it on the new one installed by National Grid. Coming back down to ground level, you can see a fire hydrant hit so hard it looks like it was torn from the ground. Did it feel like the state DEC was willing to ignore this at first?
They were definitely willing to just say it was rain.
The area that we're talking about here is on the southwest shore of Onondaga Lake. It's where for decades Honeywell and the companies that preceded it dumped chemical waste. On top of these waste beds, you'll find the orange lot for the fairgrounds and the Lakeview Amphitheater. Why do these shootings only ever happen in the United States with any degree of frequency?
True. The largest mass shooting has occurred outside the United States.
With any degree of frequency.
Yeah.
We're not talking one-offs. Yeah. And I'm not hiding behind here on a clear sidewalk either. There is snow everywhere you look. It really is inch by inch here in the city of Rome because so many buildings, especially closer to downtown, look like this. There's a lot here at Crucible that Aristeel isn't planning on purchasing. That includes the equipment and all of the buildings that you see here. The I-team quickly identified a paper trail to show that there were multiple red flags in Emmons' recent past. In 2019, he spent most of the year in jail in Onondaga County after he was arrested for physically abusing his girlfriend's son, who at the time was 3 years old, the same age Reichlin was when Emmons got custody this year. How confident are you that the proper due diligence was done here?
Oh, I'm not confident at all. I'm seeing a blank hole where there's no red flags raised here until after the fact.
When it's far too late.
When it's far too late.
Conor, where does it go next? I mean, when will we get some answers out of Cortland County on this?
That's unclear at the moment. The State Office of Children and Family Services is investigating. Normally, when they draw up what's called a child fatality report, it can take upwards of a year. We've seen that in other cases in central New York. We do know that the Cortland County Legislature is going to be holding a meeting tomorrow morning. That's a general meeting for Health and Human Services, but that does cover DSS, so we'll be looking to see if there's any answers there. For the time being, no local investigations, Michael.
I've already said no comment.
Monroe continuing to claim she can't legally talk about the case.
No interest in a local investigation? This is the latest dispute between Excellus Insurance and a healthcare provider in central New York. This time, it's St. Joe's and other hospitals within that system. So if you were in a room right now with the top people from Excellus, with the top people from St. Joe's and some of these other providers, what would you say to them?
I would say work it out.
State records show that impacts around 167,000 Excellus customers across 39 counties.
So St. Joe's as a hospital is facing financial difficulties, but they don't exist on an island, and their parent company, Trinity Health, is doing much better. This letter strikes a firmer tone, going out last week, stating there is no progress in negotiations.
Documents obtained by the I-team show former Lieutenant John Moltz took an incarcerated woman to secluded areas on work detail multiple times in February and March of this year.
This is a position where there's a huge power imbalance between himself and other inmates. So why is he allowed to keep working in the jail?
All right, we sought termination.
In a 62-page report, the organization found that about 80% of inmates said they were either witnesses to or victims of verbal, physical, or sexual abuse. The Department of Corrections confirms that 11 officers who were involved in some capacity in Nantui's death are now on administrative leave. Sharma says that fixed cameras on the wall are critical for accountability, especially if officers aren't using their body-worn cameras properly. It's the second time in just a few months that corrections officers in New York State have come to this courthouse in Utica in handcuffs to face charges related to beating a man to death with depraved indifference for human life. The commissioner is also pointing to a top-to-bottom review of the prison system currently in the hands of outside law firms hired by New York State. For both Midstate and Marcy Correctional, an outside watchdog group already compiled reports showing clear red flags when it comes to prison staff abuse years before either Nantwi or Brooks ended up dead.
That's the handbook that we did.
Stacks of books and papers representing decades of research have brought Syracuse University professors Dr. Sandy Lane and Dr. Robert Rubenstein to a potentially life-saving conclusion.
We've estimated a third to a half of the violence would be cut down by having prevented lead poisoning.
They say lead paint, found in thousands of Syracuse homes, plays a major role in violent crime.
So you're saying if we went back in time, took a magic wand and took all the lead out of Syracuse homes, there are kids who have been murdered who would still be alive today?
I believe that's true. I absolutely do.
And they're collecting the data to prove it. Lane and Rubenstein started their research after reviewing past studies that show a strong link between lead poisoning and violence. Violent crime dropped in the United States in the 70s and 80s as the country phased out lead in gasoline. In Cincinnati, a study determined that for every 5 micrograms per deciliter of lead in a child's blood, the risk of an arrest goes up between 27 and 40%.
Biologically, it makes sense.
Dr. Travis Hobart, the head of the Lead Poisoning Resource Center at Upstate, says the evidence backs up the research. Lead poisoning impacts a child's brain development, often leading to problems with impulse control and decision-making.
We can say with some reasonable amount of certainty that being exposed to lead increases the chance that a child will make the kinds of decisions as a teenager or young adult that lead to crime.
To help prove the theory here in Syracuse that less lead means fewer homicides, researchers are looking to Onondaga County family courts, asking them to review records of teens accused of violent crimes to see if they also have lead poisoning.
I think Syracuse would be on the map for doing this.
Activist Oceana Fair with Families for Lead Freedom Now says proving this link would be critical in getting better services to kids throughout the city suffering from lead poisoning. According to the health department, 396 kids were poisoned in Syracuse in 2021, accounting for 90% of all new lead poisoning cases in Onondaga County. Hundreds more fall through the cracks. For example, state data shows about 30% of kids born in 2016 were not tested for lead.
Obviously, we need to make some changes if we're 50 years into it and we're still poisoning as many children as we are.
You can see how the gunfire.
Timothy Jennings Bay with the Street Addiction Institute has dedicated his life to tracking violence and its impacts in Syracuse. He's kept a running map of shootings, showing the correlation between high rates of violence leading to poor performance in schools in those same neighborhoods.
This situation is like a big pot of gumbo. There's so many elements, right, in it that stir it up. So once in a while, something will float to the top. And you say, oh, you can identify it. Let's pull that out and examine it and try to figure out how we got in here in the first place, right? So now we're at that point with the topic of the lead.
Jennings Bay worked with Dr. Lane and Dr. Rubenstein at SU. His map of gunshots lines up almost perfectly with concentrated areas of lead. In areas of the city with higher rates of gunshots, 13.1% of kids were lead poisoned, compared to 6% in areas with a lower rate of gunshots.
It's kind of this cumulative, intergenerational harm. It has its tentacles in everything lead poisoning.
Dr. Lane says there are many factors that can lead to violent crime, but maintains reducing lead in homes and increasing access to lead testing would save lives. In a city where, according to FBI data, teenagers account for 10% of homicide arrests and 13% of homicide victims.
So we need to be asking ourselves, what has happened, what has changed that is causing this violence? What are we missing? And we're not doing that right now as a community.
Hoping to prevent more kids from joining the hundreds that are lead poisoned in Syracuse each year and help those already suffering to avoid tragedy. In Syracuse, I'm Conor Wight.
Michael, the National Weather Service has reason to believe that tornado that tipped the B-52, caused all the other damage, started somewhere around here off of J Street in Rome. And you can see the evidence for yourself. Massive trees cut pretty much in half, sending trees and trunks hurtling down to the ground. There are roofing tiles and other pieces of debris here on the ground as well, all sent in this direction, sending neighbors scrambling for cover.
This was my whole life.
Jennifer Riolo's family can see everything they own in the grass.
And I opened the front door and this is what I see. And I just screamed.
Tuesday, the National Weather Service confirming a tornado formed almost on top of their backyard. Riolo's sole focus, her daughter Lily.
So I threw her in the shower, I laid on top of her, and I had nothing to cover us, so I was looking around and I found a 12-pack of paper towel. So I picked that up and I just crouched down and I covered us with it. It sounded like somebody had vice grips on my house. My house was squealing and it was a sound like I had never heard.
Outside, destruction. Their ATV thrown through the stairs of their deck. Their RV colliding with their car.
We work hard for the nice things that we have, and we took pride in our property and the things that we had, and it's gone. It's all gone. All of it is a total loss.
All in 20 seconds.
All in 20 seconds.
Driving through Rome, you'll find devastation just about everywhere. In many spots, roads saddled with new dead ends, with some structures completely destroyed.
Then it looked like a black veil, like just coming down the street. And the window blew out, knocked me down. And then I'm just standing there trying to figure out where the hell to go. It literally looked like the movie Twister.
At the former St. Mary's Church, the current owners are trying to clean up, believing the steeple fell vertically into the building.
Kind of went in all the windows.
Dr. Kingsley Kabari transformed the old school on the church grounds into a wellness center, grateful for community members pitching in to salvage what's left.
This is beyond us. This is beyond what we can do. This is beyond what we can repair.
The National Weather Service in town surveying the damage, determining that the tornado that hit Rome is the strongest Oneida County has endured in over 30 years. Experts relieved, but surprised no one was hurt.
And when you have debris everywhere and trees falling into structures and cars, I mean, it is very remarkable that there's no deaths or injuries confirmed from this specific event.
Becoming victims of a tornado, they're actually feeling blessed that they are still alive, with neighbors helping neighbors along this block, helping with things to eat, a place to sleep, and they're also using a little bit of dark humor to get through it all as well. It was Jennifer's birthday on Tuesday, and her family, sitting in all of this, referenced that birthday, saying that Jennifer sure knows how to throw a party. Pontello became a level 1 registered sex offender after an arrest and a plea deal in Oswego County in 2013. But state laws provide very little information about those level 1 offenders. In fact, I needed his full name, up-to-date address, or his date of birth, even something like a social security number, to even confirm with the state of New York that he is a registered sex offender. Onondaga County investigators are asking for the public's help.
He lured that 5-year-old girl.
Ryan Pontello now stands accused of sex crimes against a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old girl. Investigators worry there are others, in part because they know of at least one other victim in his past. State police arrested Pontello in 2013 in the town of Palermo in Oswego County. Officers charging him then with felony sexual abuse in the first degree. You could find that out if you found this report on CNYCentral.com from 12 years ago. Anything more, including the resolution of the case, takes digging. The I-Team went to Palermo. There, we uncovered court records showing police charged Pontello for sexually touching a 5-year-old girl while she was sleeping in her bedroom in 2011. Pontello was 19, living in Phoenix at the time. Felonies are handled in county court, but this case never left the town courtroom, meaning a plea deal reduced this charge to a misdemeanor. He was then registered as a level 1 sex offender. It's the lowest level, meant to signify low risk of reoffending, meaning he doesn't show up when you type his name into the state sex offender registry. It's only by calling that you can find out info about someone with level 1 status.
Hi, my name is Conor Wight.
Even then, you need personal information like an exact address or even a social security number. We got our hands on his date of birth, and from there learned he was convicted on misdemeanor sexual abuse in the 2nd degree in August of 2013. A 5-year-old victim, the same age as the girl police now say he assaulted in the woods near a playground Sunday.
All the victims will be forever affected by this monster's behavior.
Francis Coots is a retired commander with state police. He says it's possible that this case leads to a change in how sex offender registration and information is handled.
His previous crimes were protected by privacy laws. And unfortunately, is that a child had to suffer because of it.
The Palermo Town Court informed us the sex offender level proceedings are not available to the public. One of many new questions, Matt and Megan, this now begs.
All right, so we know that level 3 is the highest level of sex offender. How do they differentiate and label someone one of the 3?
It's essentially a point system that is assigned to each person who is eventually convicted of some sort of a sex crime. So there's a certain number of points assigned to them based on their relationship to the victim, the severity of what's happened, whether or not they've committed a crime like this in the past. If you only get to around 70 points, you remain at that level 1, which is meant to show that there's a low risk of recommitting. As the points get higher, you get to level 2 and level 3. That's where you can find someone on the sex offender registry on the state's website.
But as you mentioned in your report, this was resolved in town court, some sort of plea deal. So it could be that the facts of what actually happened would actually have raised above a level 1 if it had gone to a full trial and been convicted with all the proper evidence available.
That's very possible. It all depends on how that went through the court. And of course, this is an incident that took quite a bit of time between when it actually occurred in 2011 and when it was tried in 2013.